guys? Welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, it is Women's History Month, and I have the honor and privilege to talk to one of the best lady bosses I have ever met. I've read her books. I've watched her podcast. She's changing the world. So, Jennifer, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, Richard, I'm really good. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
And I want to thank Angel Tucci for putting us together. I want to say thank you for making this so seamless. So, real quick, first question I'll have is, because obviously we all have struggles, we all go through certain things. Your life hasn't always been rainbows and Skittles and unicorns. So, what is your definition of resiliency?
Oh, that's a big question. So, I came up with a philosophy several years back because I saw people at various ages either be very resilient or not resilient at all. And what I've decided that I know is true for me and my observation of the world is people who have obstacles, great or small, and they learn how to overcome them and move forward, learn resiliency. They learn that it's all a season of life. People who are, say, much older and have not had those same experiences, when a big obstacle, hurdle, hurt, devastation, death happens, they don't know how to bounce back. So a little bit of it is a learned behavior because you have experiences and you draw from them when things happen. So being resilient is being able to say, yes, that happened, and this is how I'm going to look at it and move forward rather than staying mired in the muck.
Now, like I said, I have a lot of friends from Oklahoma. People from Oklahoma are very resilient. They're very tough. They don't take a lot of shit. So, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, Dr. Dev Steve Williams, actually went to Oklahoma, and JR Jim Ross from Oklahoma. So I love people from Oklahoma. So give us a quick down and dirty about who you are, where you came from, and how you became the lady boss that you are today.
Well, I was born here in Oklahoma City at St. Anthony Hospital. I'm the youngest of four, and I'm very confident based on the family stories that I was a bit of a surprise. So when you're the last and surprised love child, you have to make your way in the world, and you have to show up in a big way and be really loud, or nobody really notices you because there are so many other personalities in the household. So my mom, her brothers and I have differing opinions on this. I don't think my mom had much self-confidence. She just didn't. But she had the innate God-given ability to give everybody around her confidence. And I remember I was about 5 years old. We lived in Tulsa at the time, and my cousin was getting married in our house the next weekend. And my mom said to her sister-in-law, Virginia, there's the piano, there's the music. You need to learn to play the wedding march, and I'm going to go put on a cup of coffee. And my Aunt Virginia said, I don't know how to play the piano. And Mom said, yes, but you will figure it out. And my mom went in and made a pot of coffee, and lo and behold, there was a wedding that weekend, and my Aunt Virginia played the wedding march. So she was really good at pushing other people. Her brother's take on that is, yeah, she was the boss. She told everybody what to do. I think she told everybody what to do because she didn't feel that she could do it herself. So she would encourage everybody around her to do it. So I grew up around this idea of you can do anything. And my brother was the oldest. And one day he looked at my mom, and he was almost 11 years older than me. So we had very different experiences growing up. And he goes, Mom, when are you ever going to learn I'm not the most brilliant, beautiful man in the room? And my mom goes, oh, never. You always will be. And that was kind of her view on things. And so my parents never made a big deal about grades. They just assumed you're going to go to class, you're going to do your homework, and you were going to make your grades. And we all did. There wasn't like a big discussion. So drawing from those those experiences, and always, this too shall pass. This too shall pass. And I remember one day being devastated, and we can talk about that in a sec, but I was just heartbroken and sobbing. And my mom said, Jennifer, this too shall pass. And I said, yeah, just not today. So there's that balance of this too shall pass. Life will go on. God has a plan. I was born on a Monday. My first time in church was the next Sunday. I've always been a believer. But there's also that time to stop and grieve the loss, feel the feelings, feel the pain, and find your way out. That was a
You know,
long answer.
and that's and that's something that I agree with 100%. 9/11 changed my life. I mean, because I'm 10 minutes from Manhattan. And I'm actually, if I stand on my front porch, I stand in the shadows of where the Twin Towers once stood. And we knew people that were in the buildings that day, but also the people from Oklahoma, with Tim had to go through, the bombing in Oklahoma City. And they had to become very resilient. But one thing I love about um, your people, and I will call them your people, is that they remember and they honor the victims of that day. So, I mean, if you wouldn't mind, can you take me back to that day and how that affected your life as it went forward?
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but I was a federal employee and I worked in that building. And I woke up sick that day and I had bronchitis and I was coughing up a lung, spring, illness, which you always hate to be sick in the spring. And I was sat at the kitchen table trying to decide, am I well enough to go to work or sick enough to stay home? Because when you're trying to build a career, you have those decisions. And I was sitting at the kitchen table, smoking a cigarette, having a glass of juice, trying to decide. I've quit smoking, so don't be judgy about that. When you smoke, you smoke. It doesn't matter how sick you are, you're still going to have another cigarette. And this soft, gentle voice said, stay home, take care of yourself. Where did that come from? And then this very harsh voice said, you need to go to work. You have things to do. And then went on to very judgily list all the things on my to-do list. And this little, angel devil situation went on for several minutes. And finally, I decided I would split the difference and I would go in at noon. So I called the office and my boss's secretary, Teresa, answered. And I was like, hey, Teresa, this is Jennifer. She goes, oh my gosh, you sound terrible. You're not coming in, are you? And I said, well, I'm going to come in later. I think I'll be in at noon if I feel better. And she goes, yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. Well, less than 2 hours later, the whole house shook. I was up on 136th Street. The building was on 5th. That's how far apart we were, how many ever blocks that is, 129 blocks. And the whole house rattled, all the dishes rattled, the dogs started barking. And I thought, what happened? And I ran outside. I was sick. I looked fabulous in a striped nightgown, a plaid robe, and I go running out in the street and there's nothing. I thought maybe a big truck drove down the street in the middle of a neighborhood, but maybe. And I went back inside and the phone rang and it was my brother's ex-wife. And she said, thank God you're there. They just blew up your building. And I was stunned. I hung up on her and I immediately called the office and the phone just rang. And that was April 19th, 1995, the day that has become known as the Oklahoma City bombing. And I stayed home because God told me to stay home and take care of myself. And I did.
Well, the reason why, and I knew that, that's why I wanted to bring this up. Because of course I do my research. I've done about 20 hours of research on you, so I just want to let you know that.
That's scary.
Well, they call me the male Oprah or GI Joe Rogan, so I have to make sure I'm doing my job. But I'm a veteran, and a lot of people that listen to our show are veterans or first responders, and a lot of us deal with survivor's guilt. Because I know that I was in one particular instance, I was supposed to be there, but I wasn't. and it bothered me for over 30 years because I knew somebody got hurt that took my place, and I had to, and it hurt me for 30 years, and I had to finally reach out, and I'm like, bro, I'm so sorry. He's like, the hell are you talking about? He didn't even realize it, but I was holding on to that. So in your past, because you talk to a lot of people, have you ever dealt with any survivor issue, survivor's guilt or anything?
Well, I have not. I'm very grateful that I have not, but several things led to that. Number one, I firmly believe that God told me to stay home. The only problem I had with that, or, odd feeling, I'm not even going to say guilt, but odd feeling was, why didn't he tell everybody else? We lost 35 from my office alone, plus countless people in the building that I knew that I was friends with. We just didn't work in the same office. So the question was, well, why me? Why not them? And not why me, like, oh, why me? But it was like, why weren't they saved? Also, I lost some really great friends. And I was at a Christian retreat weekend thing, and this one session was on hearing God. And this man, this was obviously a few years ago, he had an overhead projector in his little, um, uh, what are those transparencies up there? And he drew a picture, very bad picture of a head and squiggly lines for the brain. And he said, your brain is so full of stuff that you can't hear God unless you've confessed your sins and you're quiet and still.
Yeah.
Because if you have all this stuff going on in your head, then God can't talk to you. And that was probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 months after the bombing. And I can remember thinking, that's why. They were in meetings, they were on the phone, they were doing work, there was noise around them. And I believe God was screaming and yelling at the top of his lungs. The number of losses were substantially less than they could have been in our office because people were in meetings off site. They were in meetings on different floors that ended up not taking the brunt of the damage. And so if you want to say survivor's guilt, like that's the closest I ever come, was like trying to manage that. But I also had a boss at previously that still worked there, and his wife insisted as soon as he got home, because he was there that day, that he go talk to the priest. And the priest said, there's one question that you're never going to ask, or two questions. Number one is, why me? Why was I saved? And number two is, why weren't they? Because in this lifetime, we'll never have the answer to those questions. And that just so aligned with my own thoughts and beliefs on it that it was like, yeah, I can take that. At some point, I had a conversation with my dad, which my dad had also worked there. Of the 35 killed, I think he came up with way over 20 that he had either hired, they had worked for him, or he had done projects with over the years. So my family felt a huge loss between, both of us were heavily impacted. And as we would have these conversations, he had been in the Air Force. And one day I don't even know what you call it, his group of guys that were going to get on a plane and fly a mission, somebody called in sick. And I don't know if this is true now, but back in the day, the entire crew was grounded and a whole nother crew took over the flight. They didn't just insert one person. So somebody was sick, they canceled their mission, somebody else did the mission, and they crashed and everybody was killed. And my dad felt bad. He knew those guys. It was sad, but these things happen. And he was a strong Christian, so he was like, well, it was their day. And 30, 40 years had passed, and this man called and said, I'm so glad to find you. I think about that day all the time, and I'm just overcome that. How did you go on? Now, the man who called my dad wasn't even in my dad's flight crew. He was on a different crew. But he was so overcome with guilt for my dad and the other guys that didn't die, that he had just like labored over this for 20, 30, 40 years. And my dad said, I feel bad for them, but it wasn't my day. And so I believe when the Bible says God knew the number of days I would walk this earth before I ever saw one, I believe that. And it wasn't my day. I'm sad that it was the day for so many other people because I don't know what their path was. The other part of that I'll say is I had people initially, which you're in such shock because it was the worst terrorist attack that had ever happened on American soil, and especially by a homegrown boy. And it was, you have a greater purpose. You have this great purpose and mission, and God saved you for a purpose. And I was like, I just need to figure out how to put an office back together. I just need to figure out how to make the goals. Like I don't have a big purpose. I just need to be able to go to work. And later, somewhere in the Bible, I've got to find the scripture so I can quote it. Somewhere in the Bible, it says something to the effect of, your purpose on life is to bring glory to God. And I was like, oh, that's simple. Like, we can do that every day with our actions, with our behaviors, with how we treat people, with how we interact with people, how our light shines up or shows up and shines. And I was like, okay, I can do this. So, fortunately, I never had any survivor's guilt. I feel for the people who have and do. And I find it very interesting. Some of the people who have the worst guilt were people that weren't even there. They were at meetings elsewhere. They were where they were supposed to be. It just wasn't in the building that day. And some of them have had a really hard time moving by.
Now, like I said, I love Oklahoma, um, and you also had to be pretty resilient at one point because at one point the Thunder had Kevin Durant, Westbrook. I mean, they were crushing it, and then it was kind of like they're like, all right, it's time to go. And but now I see the Oklahoma City Thunder are on the up, they're on the come again. So I just wanted to say that I'm a closet Oklahoma City Thunder fan, and I think they got a lot of great things going on presently right now.
Yeah, I have season tickets. I have for quite a while now. And there's a friend of ours that several years ago he'd say, the Thunder's not going to stay in Oklahoma City. They're going to go elsewhere. The team sucks. We don't have a big enough state. We cannot support them. And I was like, dude, I am there for the pre-party, the post-party, and clapping in between. So I don't even know about any of that kind of thing. And lo and behold, we're making a comeback. Sam
Yeah.
Presti is making good trades. I will get calls or texts from my nephews, and they're like, oh my gosh, did you see what he did? And I'm like, no, like, I don't watch the news. I don't just print out who our players are. Let me clap for them. I've had some knee issues. I'm having my knee replaced next week. And so I've missed a lot of games because it's just too hard to physically go. And I went to a game, and the two gentlemen that sit in front of me turned around and said, well, where have you been all season? And I was like, well, I've been busy. I've been traveling a lot. My knee has been hurting. But oh my gosh, whose number whatever? And I was talking to my girlfriend, and the man in front of me turned around and said, if you would come, you would know the players.
But now, also, you said that before every game you would go to Toby Keith's place.
Yeah.
Did you ever had the honor and privilege to ever meet Mr. Keith?
I did not. I heard a rumor. I don't know if it's true, but I heard a rumor that he had never stepped foot in the place. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't really care. I love the atmosphere. I love the people there. I walk into the bar and I drink a Bud Light with an orange wedge. It's a fake Blue Moon. Blue Moons are delicious, but a little heavy. I go walking in and they're pouring my beer and they're like, which snack would you like today? Because they know, I feel like we're at Cheers, right? In Boston. Like, they know what I want. And after the pandemic, when Oklahoma never really shut down much, we just kind of kept going. I feel very fortunate about that because I wasn't locked in my house for 2 years. But when they did open the bar up and they they said we had to sit in groups of 2 and spread out, and we had an uproar, my group of friends and I, because it was like, we're all together and we choose to be together. So they finally let us sit together. And one of the gals just is super thoughtful. I never entered my mind. And she had texted and said, we're all going to go on this night, bring lots of money because we're going to like over tip them. And I don't know how many hundreds of dollars all came together that night, but it was like the bar staff make a lot of their money off tips.
Yeah.
So we all went, and the bartenders were crying. They were so excited we were all back because like we travel in herds down here. And then there were huge tips at the end of the night, but they're there for us and send us messages on Facebook. And I'm a baker, so they'll ask me to bake cakes for their kids and their special occasions. So it's just a really a fun family atmosphere. And yeah, I'm there every time. And I do have a parking angel, and she's very specific to me. You may not have her. But in all these years, there have only been 2 times that I didn't park right outside the front door at Toby Keith's, no matter how busy the parking lot is. I drive up and say, all right, God, where's my parking angel? Because I need my spot. And it's there every time.
And people think I'm crazy, but I believe that God's looking out for me. So even if I'm as soon as I pull into a parking lot, I'm like, all right, God, show me your favor. If I'm going into a store, I'm like, all right, God, give me the best discounts, give me the best deals, show me your favor. And that's something that I've learned from Mr. Joel Osteen, that if you expect favor in life, you will get it as long as you're putting enough positive out into the world. So tell me how you became a best-selling author, podcast host, lady boss. How did this all come about?
Well, there are people who plan their lives, and I say kudos to you, but that's not my journey. Somebody recently said, wait, you have a degree from the University of Oklahoma? And I'm like, yes, I do. I have a degree in French and Spanish and an honors degree. And she goes, well, how'd that work out for you, majoring in French and Spanish? And I went, well, my mother would tell you I ran the government. I did not run the government. My mom would tell you I ran the government. I got to retire at a very early age with a pension. I have health insurance for life. So I'm thinking it worked out pretty well for me. Like it worked. It worked for me. But I came back to the office on April 19th because I try to attend the service every year. And I don't dwell on it all day, every day, but I do want to go and honor my friends and take that moment to reflect and remember. And I got back to the office on a Friday. It was April 19th, and I had been on a year training expedition across the country. And I got back to the office on Friday, and I found out Wednesday I could retire or relocate. And I was like, wait, what? So I decided that I really liked training, so I would just do that. So I retired on July 31st, took a month off, September 1, my phone rang, and this woman said, I'm with such and such management company. I worked in housing, so a housing management company, they knew me. And she said, will you, I froze for a second, sorry. Will you come do training for us in Fort Worth on this date? Well, Fort Worth's a 3-hour drive. I'm in. What do you want me to talk about? So I did. And I just want to tell you, I thought that was the rest of my life. I just thought my phone was going to ring and people were going to have me come in and they were going to pay me money and I was going to be happy and they were going to be brilliant and everything was going to be good. And then my phone didn't ring and nobody called back. And I was like, wait, what? This is not, God, this is not my plan. How did this work? So about a year later, a friend asked me to go to a Chamber of Commerce event. And when we left, I literally stepped off the curb and fell into a woman. And come to find out, she was a business coach. I didn't know that was a thing. We exchanged cards. She starts emailing me. And in one of her, she had a Sunday night CEO call, and you could just call in and she'd tell you what to do, how to run a business. And she said, I've got an online training. If you'll pay $1, you can have 3 days access to the first module to see if you like me, how I train, what's going on. And if you don't, just, opt out. Okay. So I pay my $1. I opt in. I didn't open my email for 4 or 5 or 7, 10, 20 days. I opened my email and guess what? if you didn't opt out in 3 days, you bought it. And I was like, holy crap, I just bought this thing I didn't even know I wanted or needed. And it was a coaching program. And in one of them, she said, you're going to write a blog. I didn't know what a blog was. So list 10 things that are, make a statement of something you know about, and that'll be your title. And then list 10 things that you know about that to be true. And I was like, okay, I can do that. So I did. And then the next module was, now fill out each of those to be a whole page. Okay, so I did. And then she said, go on Fiverr. I didn't know what that was, FIVERR.com, and hire somebody to do a cover. Okay, I did. And she said, now you have an ebook because it's electronic, it's a PDF format, and you can have an opt-in for your website. Well, I didn't know what that was, but now I have it. So I'm excitable about it. Yes, I used excitable wrong because I like the word and I use it wherever I can, even when it's wrong. And somebody else in the coaching group goes, upload it to Amazon. I was like, I can't do that. My brother and sister are writers. I'm not. And she goes, well, you wrote this, so upload it. I was like, I don't know how. I was a terrible student. I don't know how. So this young gal walked me through it. I got it uploaded on Amazon. And she said, well, you need to look every now and then. Amazon won't pay attention if you're a bestseller, so you have to watch it. And I was like, okay. And like a day later, I was a best-selling author in 3 categories on Amazon. And I was like, how does that happen? So her methodology was list 10 things you know something about that lead to your topic, fill it out, write a book. I don't think I have one. Oh, I do. This is my first book, Address the Stress, Tips and Tricks, short little ebook. Then online, I came into this group, Kathy Kids group, Bestsellers Guild, and she goes, write your best-selling book in 45 minutes. Here's my most recent one, 12 Minutes to Success, Reach Your Goals in 12-minute increments. Short little book, because people want something short, they want something fast, and they want actionable steps at the end. You put it out there, and people eat it up. I've had a couple of publisher people say, well, if it's not 150 pages, it's not a book. It's a pamphlet. It's a this, it's a that. And I was like, yeah, but I had people reach out to me and say, it was short. It was to the point. I get it. I know what you're saying. It made a difference in my life. And I was like, yeah, it's a book. So I was talking to a coach friend of mine and I was like, I'm struggling because I just edited and re-released 12 Minutes to Success. And I said, I'm struggling because these publisher people are telling me it's not a book and it's a book. And he goes, why are they telling you that? And I was like, I don't know why they're telling me this. I know they're wrong. And he goes, Jennifer, it's because they wouldn't have clients. They need clients to come to them and say, I want to write a 150-page book. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it. So I re-released my book, Voices of Women, on International Women's Day. I had the honor of speaking on that platform 2 times last year and this year. And I'm in their compilation book based on our talks that we gave. And so to be a boss, you have to decide what you want and go for it. And the big story in that is it can change. I started out doing leadership development and I love it and I'll still do it. And you want me to come talk to your peeps? I'm all about it. I've got all kinds of material. I've got years of material put together. I'm ready. But I ended up on a spiritual journey. And now I do energy healing. I do Holy Fire Reiki. I use Bradley Nelson's emotion code, body code, and now belief code to make shifts in your life so you can heal physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And I think that's all part of my path. And it's all divinely given. And some people get in a lane and they think they can't change lanes. And I'm here to say you can totally change lanes.
And I want to go back to your book because my book is about to drop probably in the next 2 weeks. It's only 70 pages.
There you go.
The book is endorsed by John Lee Dumas, the #1 podcaster in the world. And he's my coach. And he's telling you, listen, guys, I taught Rich, if you want to learn how to get a podcast with 2 million downloads, you need to get this book. So it might only be 70 pages, but I think it's going to be a bestseller because most comic books are maybe 30 pages and they sell out every month. So I don't worry about doing somebody already wrote the Bible. I don't need to write the Bible. I just need to write something where people can be like, huh, all right, I can put this into work. I can use this. I can carry it with me. I can put it in my purse or my backpack. So I think people get too wrapped up thinking I don't have what it takes to write a book because I'm a ninth grade dropout. I mean, I can't even spell a lot, but I've had over 6,000. I mean, 1,000 interviews, and I've read over 6,000 books. So it really doesn't matter what your position is, because God's going to determine what your position is. Because even Moses stumbled over his words. Aaron was the big talker, but he chose Moses to become the speaker. So I think it's who chooses you is what's the most important thing. You agree?
I do, and I feel like we have these callings and we ignore them, but they just keep coming up. And I was on an airplane coming back from LA. I was on a business thing. I still worked for the federal government, and this woman was on the same row with me. Luckily, there were 3 seats. We each had one. The center was like we could spread out. And she said, "If you could do anything, what would you do?" And I said, "I would be a trainer." I was at an event, and this gal was like, "Hello, my name is," and I was like, "Man, you give me that book, you give me that mic, I could own that room." Like she probably got paid, $5,000 for her 2-hour whatever. And she goes, "Well, you just spoke to the universe and doors will open and you will say no to some, but they'll keep opening because you've just now spoken what you want." And I was like, "You're a little too airy-fairy, touchy-feely for me, but okay." And it was true. Doors kept opening. People kept asking me at work, "Train on this. Can you travel here and train on that?" So all the doors open, and I slowly kept walking through them until the final destination of walk away from that job and step into this. And so we don't listen to our intuition. We don't listen to God. My godmother, Dolores Ann Mitson, probably one of the most Christian women I will ever know, one day said, just out of the blue, "When God speaks to you, it may not make sense, but it's gentle, it's calm. When the devil speaks to you, it makes perfect sense, but you feel terrible." And I was like, "Oh, thanks for that." Okay. And she said, "Yeah, one day I was folding laundry and God said, 'This whole house could burn down, but it's okay. You'll rebuild.'" And I thought, that's the worst thought ever. And a few months later, she and her husband were out of town and the phone rang and it was the neighbor. And he said, "Your son is fine." And she goes, "Okay, great." Her son was a senior in high school. They left him at home. They were just gone for a few days. And he said, "Your house is a total loss, but we got Chris out." And she was like, "Wait, what?" And her house had burned to the ground. And the neighbors, I think I have the story right. The neighbor's dog was barking. So he got up to let the dog out. And the dog was barking because the house across the street was in flames. So they knew the parents were out of town and they got the son out. Everybody's fine. And the house burnt to the ground. And she said, when I got that message, it was like, that's a weird message, but I wasn't scared. On the day of the Oklahoma City bombing, I can say without reservation, the message I got was from God. I've had people say, "Oh, it was your guardian angel. Oh, it was this. Oh, it was that." It doesn't really matter. God created it all. It came from God to stay home that day. And I did. And I never questioned it. I never questioned it because I knew I was not supposed to be there that day.
Okay, so let me talk about because I believe, I mean, a lot of people talk crap about the book The Secret. I like the book. I read everything because I'm a big reader. I'm a big knowledge, and if somebody keeps bringing up something, I'm gonna read it. Like I'm a Christian, but I've read the Quran. I've read the Book of Mormon. I've, this way I can have an intelligent conversation if I ever have somebody that comes on the show. But I believe in manifestation, and I
Yeah.
believe that the brain hasn't really changed much in the last 1900 years. And even Dale Carnegie talked about how your obsessions become your possessions. And for me, on my phone, I have a vision board that I have, and one of my visions just came true. Is that we're going on a cruise to the Bahamas to go to Atlantis, and it's been on my vision board for 10 years. But I don't think if it wasn't on my vision board, I don't think it would come to fruition. And I wanted to ask you about that, because eventually, if you start believing, and if you believe in God, I believe in God, but you also had a mom that believed in you. So once you start believing in yourself and believing in your goals, you start using your reticular activating system in your brain. So things you're going to find either happiness, because if you're looking for it, you're going to find it, or if you can find sadness, or if you're looking for it, you're going to find it. So talk about that as whatever you look for, you're going to find, whether it's success or failure.
Yeah. So again, I stumble through life a little bit because I know God's got my back, so I'm kind of okay with not having a set plan on everything I do. But I took Jack Canfield's class, the success principles, like what do successful
Yeah.
people do? And one of the things is like that whole mindset. If you wake up and you step out of bed and you stub your toe, you literally have the opportunity to set the tone of your whole day. You can stub your toe and immediately say, this is going to be a crap day. I have already stubbed my toe. And then it is just going to be a continuation of one bad thing after another, after another, after another. And your whole day is going to go to shit just in no time. You can stub your toe and say, I'm glad I got that out of the way. Now it's going to be a great day. Like I had my one little fumble. One day I was getting ready for work. I went in the kitchen and the cat was on point. Cats don't go on point. My cat was on point. It was a scorpion. I hollered at my husband. He comes running in and that scorpion goes underneath the cabinet, underneath the baseboard. I don't know how it fit under there, but scorpions did it. So scorpion's gone. My husband leaves. And the next thing I know, I go back in the kitchen. I finish getting ready. I go in the kitchen to grab my stuff to leave. And the cat is on point and the dog is barking. And that scorpion had wrapped itself around the wheel of the island because it will move. Well, I went and I got hairspray. Ladies, aerosol hairspray, it will freeze anything. It will freeze anything. So I ran and got the hairspray. I sprayed the scorpion. The scorpion fell. I hate the sound of stepping on a bug. So I had to scream really loudly. So I heard me scream, not the crunch. I squished that bug under a paper towel. I threw it away, going the whole time. I got in my car. I went to back out. There's a frog. So I get a broom and I'm trying to get the frog out of the garage because it's 110 degrees. The frog is going to die in the garage. That's going to be disgusting. I finally get the frog out and I back up. I ran over the frog. So now I've got a splattered frog on the driveway. So I get to work. I call my husband and I said, well, it's dead day at the Takagi house. And he goes, it's dead day. And I said, oh my gosh, it's not even 8:30 and I've killed a scorpion and a frog and I'm going to have to drive home and see that when I get home. Oh my God. But I just had to tell you because it's over. My dead day is over. And he was like, all right. I get home from work. My driveway's clean. He comes home from work and I said, oh my gosh, I guess the ducks and the birds and whatever clean the driveway. I didn't have to come home and face that. I'm so happy. And he goes, yes, after you called, I came home and got the hose and I cleaned the driveway for you. It was like, ta-da, it happened. It was great. I got stranded in Atlanta one time because, do we have time for this story, Rich? I mean,
Whenever
seriously.
you want, we got time.
So I'm flying from Miami home. I have to fly through Atlanta. I get there and I land and there's a notification. My flight's been delayed. Well, I'm upset. I'm a Sooner fan. It is OU Texas. And I'm supposed to be home in time to watch the game. If my guy does not catch the ball, it's pass interference. End of story. And I don't care what you have to say. He didn't catch it. It's pass interference. It doesn't work out that way, but that's my story and I'm sticking to it. So now I'm mad because I'm going to miss the first part of the game. Damn it. So I decide I'm going to go have breakfast. Well, I meet 3 people. Well, they're going on vacation. Well, they're going to go to a different terminal at Atlanta. Well, I've got several hours. So my flight, can I come have breakfast with you? Yeah, we're going to start drinking. Perfect. It's 10 in the morning. I don't drink at 10 in the morning, but I'm going to drink at 10 in the morning. Get to the restaurant. There's a long line, but we get a table right away. I ordered chicken and waffles and a Bud Light. And she goes, "Oh, ma'am, I'm so sorry. We're out of waffles, but we have pancakes." And I went, "Fine, I'll have pancakes." "Well, we're out of Bud Light." "Okay, well, I'll have this." Okay, so she brings my food, and I went, "Thanks so much. These are the best looking waffles I've ever seen." She goes, "Ma'am, those are pancakes." I said, "I'm well aware, but I'm just pretending because I wanted waffles." So I have my breakfast, and we're talking, and they're a fun little family group. And I looked at my phone, and my flight was not delayed till 1 in the afternoon. It was delayed until 1 the next day. Well, now that's a whole different level of frustration. I said, "Well, I gotta go. This is wrong." So I go up, which since I've been eating and drinking now, there are no lines, right? Because everybody from my flight's been taken care of. So I go up and they said, "Yeah, it's tomorrow, but we'll put you on a direct flight instead of having to fly somewhere else." And I was like, "Okay, great." So I got on my phone, I found a hotel, I get to the hotel. It's too early to check in. I said, "Well, I need to watch my game." So I find the bar, I'm watching my game, I'm eating food, I'm cheering for my team quietly because I'm the only one in there. I get all my stuff and I go to the bathroom. I come back, there's a guy in my chair. He didn't know it was my chair because I cleaned my spot. But I just sat next to him and I'm sure he was thinking, "Why is this woman next to me?" And I was like, "Sorry, dude, this is my game and I'm watching it." Well, he was a Texas fan. So we had a very nice, non-confrontational, and OU won. I mean, when I got there, we were already down 14 points. Came back and won. It was all good. Now I'm watching the next game, and I was like, "Well, okay, I guess I'll just go to my room. I've eaten, I've drank. It's time to go to my room." It's like 4:30. I'm at the wrong hotel. I took the wrong shuttle. I'm at the wrong hotel. So I get on the shuttle, I go to the right hotel, I walk in, it's still the wrong hotel. 3 shuttles later, I get to the right hotel at the Atlanta airport. There are 3 Marriotts at the Atlanta airport. I walk into the right one and I hold up my phone. I said, "Ma'am, please tell me I'm at the right hotel." She goes, "Yes, ma'am, you are." And I went, "Oh, good, because I was at this one all day, eating and drinking. I charged it to my room. It didn't go through. I did go back and pay." I said, "No, I was at the wrong place, but thank God, at least I got to watch my game." And she said, "Oh, our sports bar opens in 15 minutes." If I had been at the right place, I would have never seen my game. I could not have checked into my room at 11 o'clock. I would have not gotten to watch the game because their sports bar was not open. I would have been trapped in a hotel all day. So it all worked out for me. The next morning, I wake up to an alert at 4 in the morning. "Your flight is canceled. It is not postponed. It is not delayed. It is not rescheduled. It is canceled." I knew what that meant. That meant get your butt out of bed and go get a rental car. So I did. And I walked up and I was handed her my driver's license and credit card. And I said, "Ma'am, I need a car and I need to drive to Oklahoma City and I need to leave it at the Will Rogers World Airport." And she goes, "Well, if you're going to be that bossy, I need a cup of coffee and some breakfast." I said, "Well, honey, if I'd had a cup of coffee and breakfast, I would be nicer, but I can't be nicer because I've been up half the night and I need to get home right now." And she was like, "Oh, when you put it like that." She got me a car. It was $1,000, Hertz. Thanks for that. $1,000. I get in the car and I take off. I have no idea where I'm going. GPS finally gets me in the right direction. Thank you, Lord, for GPS. It has saved me so many times. I pull up to Buc-ee's in Kentucky because, of course, you have to go to Buc-ee's. I bought a cooler. I bought a bag of ice. I bought Diet Dr. Pepper. That's only for treats. Diet Coke's my usual. Diet Dr. Pepper. I bought snacks. I have the whole car. I do a Facebook Live in the car. People are still laughing about that Facebook Live with my hair tied up with a lanyard from a previous event. And the whole way home, and my phone's ringing. I have my Bluetooth set up so I'm hands-free, right? And the whole time, and it's a long drive. It was like 12 hours to get to my lake house, which is eastern Oklahoma, where my husband was, and 2 hours more to get to the airport. The entire way, I honestly felt a host of angels just pushing me down the highway and make the next turn and go the next place. And I pulled in to get gas and I was like, this is a skanky ass place. And I got off, I went to the next exit. It was nice, it was beautiful. So the lesson is when your gut tells you get up and go get a rental car, get up and get a rental car. It doesn't matter if it's $1,000. I got home, I was happy, all was well with the world, cheaper than hotels for 3 nights. Every time you stop, especially ladies, every time you stop on a road trip to go to the bathroom, go ahead and fill up your car. That car never got below half a tank. I was never going to be left on the side of the road in a scary situation with no gas. Other things can happen, yes, but running out of gas is a big one. And I felt protected. I felt encouraged. A girlfriend called and said, of all my friends, you're the only one I know who could get in a car and drive halfway across the country by yourself and be fine. And I said, every woman you know should be able to get in a car and drive halfway across the country and be fine. They should know. Put gas in the car, get your GPS, do hands-free, and just trust that the Lord is going to get you where you need to go. We
But
should all
now,
be able to do that.
you know, the story that you just told, for me, like little stuff can happen in your life and you can get totally whacked out. Like I had a podcast guest canceled for the first thing this morning. And I'm like, okay, no big deal. I'm like, I can either get bitter or I can get better. So I'm going to use that hour and a half that I would have be interviewing somebody to better myself. So for me, if I go through a setback, because I believe that a setback is just a setup for the comeback that God's going to show out. So talk about that, about how, you can either get bitter or you can get better.
Well, sometimes you have to feel the feels a little bit. I'm all about feeling the feels. Sometimes I do it a little more loudly than others, but you got to feel the feels. Don't deny the fact that it happened. But the faster you can come up with a next step, a next solution, the better you're going to be. Because we can stay in a spiral. In 2005 was like a really big, a whole lot in my life. We found out my dad had kidney cancer. We're flying back and forth to MD Anderson in Houston with my dad. Then my grandmother, who was in her 90s, was failing and she passed away. And then I called my brother one day because I knew he was in the hospital in Florida. And he goes, oh, I'm so glad you called. And I said, well, do you need to talk to Dad? I can 3-way call you in. I called on my calling card. And he goes, yeah. So I get my dad on the phone. I was like, hey, Dad, Rob's on the phone. I don't know what he wants, but he wants to talk to somebody. And my dad goes, hey, what's going on? And he goes, well, the doctor just came in and said, I have 6 months to live. I need to get my affairs in order. I don't know what to do. My dad's like, well, so that's a whole conversation about, does he want to be cremated? Does he want to be buried? Does he want to come back to Oklahoma? What wants to happen there? Then I get a call. My 38-year-old niece, who had a heart transplant, has died. And I mean, it was just like one thing after another. And then my oldest sister, her horse died. And then her dog died. And then our brother died. And then my uncle died. And then I had this huge project at work that my division, it just fell solely on me. I'm not like taking that on like a badge of honor, like I wanted it. It's just, I was the only one who knew how to do it. So I got it all. And a man from Washington, D.C. flew in to oversee this project to see how well I had done. I picked him up at the airport and we had known each other off and on through various meetings over the years. And he said, how's it going? And I said, John, it is a lot. And this is 2005. And I just went down my list and he said, well, just so you know, everybody has years like that. I had that year. It was in whatever. You just need to know that every year is not going to be that way. And I went, wait, what? And he goes, it's not going to be like this every year. You're never going to have years where every single thing that could possibly happen happens. And I don't know if that's 100% true for anybody listening, But that's absolutely been true for me. Have I had a lot of heartache and devastation and grief since 2005? Absolutely. My parents died 12 days apart. It was catastrophic for me. I adored my parents, but it wasn't everything at once. So that idea in 2005, which was how many ever years ago, that idea that these bad times are seasons, and the Bible talks about seasons, that just gave me hope to move on. So I can be mad that I'm stuck in traffic because I like to be mad about that. Or on a better day when I'm being my higher self, I say, I'm really glad I'm stuck behind this light because there's probably something up happening ahead that I don't need to be a part of. And then I find out that, a car broke down or this happened. And I'm like, yep. So I love to ask God, please show me why I should be happy about this and let me be happy about it. I wanted to be a cheerleader. You live in Texas. We lived in Texas for 4 years when I was 11 through 15. And every girl wants to be a cheerleader. I lived in the Dallas area. I wanted to be a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader when I grew up. I never made the cheer squad ever. But I said, dear God in heaven, I want to make the 7th grade cheer squad. Please, please, please. And if I don't make it, please show me why I'm glad I didn't. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, if you throw a caveat in there, chances are you don't really want it anyway. So those caveat prayers don't always come true. And I can remember we had a little cold snap. End of October, 1st of November, everybody's all bundled up. It's really cold and the wind is blowing, and those cheerleaders are down there freezing their little butts off in their short little skirts and short sleeve tops. And I've got on jeans and a sweater and a sweatshirt and a coat and mittens and a hat. And I literally remember saying, thank you, God. That's why I didn't want to be a cheerleader.
And I love the Garth Brooks quote that thank God for unanswered prayers.
Yes.
Sometimes God's answer is no. So, let me ask you quite, for the last couple minutes, on my timeline, I see all these people, they binge watch this on Netflix, and I'm a binge watcher too, so I'm not shitting on anybody, but I love your theory of the 12 minutes because everybody has 12 minutes. And when I tell that to people, they're like, I don't have time. And I'm like, listen, whether you're The Rock or you're just a lowly Richard Kaufman, everybody has 1,440 minutes every day. It's what you do with those days that either those minutes, either you become successful or a failure. So talk about your 12 minutes.
I'm so happy you asked about this. So I met Jack Canfield in person at an event, and I signed up for his online course to be a Success Principles trainer. And the first principle is take 100% responsibility for every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you think you do. Yeah, okay, well, I think I do, but I don't. We don't. Like, we pretend, but we don't. His next piece of that is if 100%, camera froze, if 100% is too much, just take 5% more. How much better would your life be if you took 5% more responsibility in various aspects of your life? Well, the best way to learn something is to agree to go speak on it. I have been asked to speak at an association luncheon in Norman, Oklahoma, where the University of Oklahoma is, by the way. And I said, I'm going to speak on step 1 on the path to success. Take 100% responsibility for your life. That's my talk. And she was like, great, we'll see you on Thursday. I got hung up on 5%. What is 5% more? I graduated college with a honors degree without a math class. That was a goal and I crushed it. But I do know how to use a calculator. But what's 5%? So I'm laboring on this. Like, what you focus on finally becomes clear or it drives you insane, one of the two. And it finally hit me when I worked full time and then not in the house and came home. I typically was home around 5. And By 6, my husband and I had navigated whatever we were going to do for dinner. And I typically had from 6 to 10 to do whatever I wanted. I could go to water aerobics. I could ride my exercise bike. I could go through that big old stack of mail. I could do anything from 6 to 10. That is 4 hours. That is 240 minutes. 5% of 240 is 12 minutes. Yes, I used a calculator to get this far. What if I'm not riding my exercise bike at all and I start riding it for 12 minutes a day? I can do that. What if I decide I want to go through that whole stack of mail on the counter, but it gets a little overwhelming? Because if you're like me, all the junk mail gets thrown together and then at some point you have to go through it, right? But if I only do it for 12 minutes, that pile goes down really quickly. So anything I wanted to do, if I only did it in 12-minute increments, I could make headway. So it turned into the book, 12 Minutes to Success, Reach Your Goals in 12-minute increments. I've done talks on it. The energy healing work I do is quick. It's easy. It's fast. You don't have to relive trauma. You don't have to remember it. We set our intention and we clear it and it is gone and all is well with the world. And you start having massive shifts quickly and easily. So I just married the two. So we can break your goals into little 12-minute increments and you can see that you're crushing them. I spoke on this at a summit a couple of months ago, and a woman that she has a group training program that I'm in, and she goes, "Oh, by the way," another gal in the group said, "I heard Jennifer speak," and this gal and I had never been on the calls at the same time, so we didn't know each other. She goes, "I heard her speak, and I don't like to read. I hate to read, but there are some business books I need to read." So I decided one of my goals was going to be read for 12 minutes a day every day and get through some of these books. And I've read 12 minutes a day every single day for the last 2 weeks. Well, then I looked up War and Peace is like, I don't know, 1,600 pages. It's a big old thick book written by who? Tolstoy, Tchaikovsky, somebody. Anyway, it's a big old huge book. The audiobook is 63 hours if you listen to the Audible book. 12 minutes a day for 365 days a year is 73 hours. What could you accomplish if you had focused 73 hours on one thing? Writing that book, 12-minute increments. I'm going to write down a list of all the things I possibly would want to write about in a book. The next day, go back, spend 12 more minutes, and mark off the ones that you're not ready to do yet. Get that list down to 5 every day in 12-minute increments. You're making progress. You're also making a promise to yourself that you're keeping, and your brain is like, she does what she says. We'll help her do what she says. Because most of us, we break our promises to ourselves, and our subconscious goes, that girl's not going to do it anyway. We don't need to help her. She's not going to do it. So it just builds all this momentum. A friend of mine called one day. A video called me, and I was like, where are you? What are you doing? She goes, I didn't want to come to the gym, and you told me to spend 12 minutes getting my tennis shoes and my clothes together. So when the inspiration hit, I could like get ready. And I did. And I got ready and I drove to the gym. I sat in the parking lot and thought, crap, I don't want to go in. I'm going to go in for 12 minutes. I'm going to get on the Stairmaster for 12 minutes and then I'm leaving. And I did my 12 minutes and I was like, I'm going to go a little longer. And the next thing I knew, I had been on here 24 minutes. I did 2 cycles at 12. So she calls me and we talk. As it turns out, she did an hour because now we're talking and she's distracted from the pain. And so she did more. So sometimes, there's that book, The Art of the Start. Somebody said, name your book, 12 Minutes to Success, The Art of the Start. And I said, well, that's kind of already taken. I don't mind plagiarizing, but that might be a little bit much. But it's getting started, getting momentum. What is it that you truly, truly want to desire?
Yeah,
And let's break that down.
And I believe that because I'm the world's worst guitar player. But I read that if somebody never played guitar, but all of a sudden they pick up the guitar just for 10 minutes a day for 1 year straight, they're going to be in the top 95% of all the whole population in the world just by
Yeah.
playing focused for 10 minutes, not just willy nilly for 10 minutes, but focus on whatever you want to do for 10 minutes a day. You're whatever you want to be, you'll be in the top 95% in the world just by 10 minutes a day or 12 minutes a day of just focus. And of course, focus means, follow one course until successful. That doesn't mean you're going to do 12 minutes one day on this, 12 minutes on something else. You have to focus on the one thing that's going to get you to where you want to be, right?
Yeah. What is it you want to do? What's that one thing that would make the biggest difference in your life? And I do that with my energy healing clients too. What is the one thing, if it were substantially better, would make the biggest difference in your life? Or what is the one thing, if it were completely removed, would make the biggest difference in your life? And let's focus on that, either removing or opening up possibility. Either way, it works for me. Same thing with the 12 minutes. Again, the 12 minutes is because I couldn't figure out what to do. I couldn't figure out 5%. In most of our days, we have like from 8 to noon, 1 to 5, 6 to 10. That's kind of how our days are broken up. So pick one thing and do it for 12 minutes. At the office, what if you came in and spent 12 minutes working on your emails, cleaning out the inbox? I literally timed myself one Saturday. I can get rid of close to 100 emails in 12 minutes. A lot of them are trash and I needed to delete anyway, but I hadn't. I had over 20,000 emails in my inbox. And I was like, 12 minutes, timer would go off. I'd get up, get something to drink, let the dog out. 12 more minutes, trying to crush that. So it gets you going, it gets your brain engaged. There's a lot of study out there, and I'm not refuting it in any way, shape, or form, that if you're interrupted, it takes a long time to get back into that high performance focus mode. I don't disagree with that. But if you have 12 minutes completely uninterrupted, focusing on one thing, you're going to move forward on that one thing.
Yeah.
Whatever
Like Gary V says, my brother from another mother says, your 9 to 5 pays your bills, but your 10 to 2 builds your legacy. So guys, if you're sitting there watching somebody else on TV getting rich and you're not getting rich, maybe it's time to flip the script. So Jennifer, so let me ask you, what do you got going on now? How can we support you? Where do we find your books and where do we find your podcast?
Yeah. Okay. So my books are all on Amazon. They're all in Kindle format and paperback now. I am an avid Kindle reader. Pardon me. And I don't like books. I have books all over my office, but I like a Kindle. I have 7. Don't judge me. I don't know where I'm going to be and which one I'm going to need.
And I
Avid
sent you.
reader.
I actually sent you my book. I
Oh, you did?
I just sent you my book yesterday.
Oh, perfect. I love books. I worked in the History of Science collection at the University of Oklahoma. I held a first edition Galileo in my hands with his handwriting in the margin for the second edition. Like, wow. I'm all about books. So they're all on Amazon. Big Amazon fan. My podcast is called Destined for Success. It's on all the platforms. And it's because I believe we are all destined for more success than we even envision for ourselves, because God has a bigger plan for us. So let's just get one thing we can do better and differently in leadership trainings. Just because this woman came up to me in tears. I teach for the great state of Oklahoma, and she was like, I'm the worst supervisor ever. I'm not doing anything you said. And I said, but can you be better tomorrow? And she goes, well, yes. And I said, perfect. That's all we can do is be better tomorrow. Like, take one thing and implement it tomorrow. So Destined for Success is my podcast. I have a year-long laser coaching program that's in amazingly 12-minute increments. And we'll break your goals down into little 12-minute increments, and then we'll clear the blocks that are holding you back, because there are trapped emotions, there are imbalances, there are past histories that you don't even know that are driving the bus, that hole below the waterline, from the, what's that called? Iceberg. I can speak. I can talk. I do this for a living. What's underneath the iceberg driving you? Let's clear that out quickly and easily. And that's a 1-year thing. And we agree what your next step's going to be. as soon as you accomplish that, then you book your next session, and we just keep moving for a year. It's really exciting. I'm just launching that.
Now, is there a
Labor
web? Is there a website to go to, or is there what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yep, my website's jennifertakagi.com. Takagi. Looks bad, sounds bad, but altogether it's not that bad. I married the name. I'm not Japanese. My husband's a quarter. People always ask that. You don't look very Japanese. Nope.
Well, I'm so appreciative of you, and again, I want to thank Angel Tucci for putting us together. Thank you for making this so seamless, and I just want to say thank you for everything you do. And it is Women's History Month, so I just want to say thank you for being a lady boss and for changing the world.
Thank you for having me.
And anything I could do, I'm going to make sure I'll help you out whatever I can. So, guys, make sure you check her out on LinkedIn. Make sure you check her out on Facebook. She has some amazing content. So just make sure you check her out and follow it. And if you want to change your life in 12 minutes, make sure you join the course. All right, Jennifer, have a great week. Have a great week.
Thank you.
All right, guys, remember, like Joel Osteen says, and I love the quote, you can either be a victim or you can be a victor. And if you watch this show, you are a victor of your future and your present. You're no longer a victim of your past. I love you guys. And remember, vertical momentum, the only way to go is up. I love you guys. Jennifer, have a great week.